This is our restoration of a 1956 International Harvester S100 half-ton pickup. The restoration was completed back in 2000 before we all started videoing a lot of these restoration videos. So I'm using pictures to show you how it went. It still looks good considering the age of the restoration. So let's start with a before picture. I purchased this truck in the spring of 1996. I got the itch to do an old pickup the previous year and went to an auction in a small town nearby and watched an International L100 sell that was in fairly good shape. I think I brought about 1100 that day, and I didn't want to spend that much at the time. So later I saw an ad in a local paper for this little beauty. I say that with tongue in cheek. Anyway, the price was right, and I drove it home. Needed a lot of work, more than I planned on, but over the next 4 years it became a fun adventure. The engine ran, but not well. The cab only had surface rust, but the bed was beyond repair. I didn't realize that at the time, and all the glass was broken. The interior was there, but it needed replacing. So off we went on our grand adventure. So the first thing we did was to remove the bed and try to remove the floor from it for replacement. We used one of those spot cutter attachments to remove the welds. We got the bed out, but had no idea how we were going to make a replacement. Unlike the Ford or Chevys of the time, it didn't have an easily replaceable wood floor. Here's a quick shot of the front bumper. I know the pictures are bad, but this is from over 20 years ago. It's hard to tell, but the passenger side was bent back and actually did some damage to the fender. Also, in the left part of the fender, you can see a piece of metal sticking out of the bumper that doesn't belong there. The previous owner had finagled a tow hitch and cut through the bumper, then proceeded to weld it directly to the frame. That was about the only damage to the body. Now let's fast forward to 1999, because that is what happens with these projects. We finally got back to work on this baby. It sat beside the house for a couple of years while I got my business started. In this picture, you can see what that we have removed the front clip in the. I'd also done some research and realized the colors were actually magnolia ivory and Cambrian coral, not the usual IH white and red. Here's the shot of the engine when I took it out. I think I rented the hoist, don't remember now. That thing is heavy. If I remember correctly, the back diamond engine weighs between 750 to 1,000 pounds. The machine shop thought I was bringing them a tractor engine. I had a friend of mine who is no longer with us rebuild the engine. So with the engine at the builder and the cab and body off the frame, it was stripped the rest of the frame down. My son and Brad and I took everything apart on it. The only thing that didn't get disassembled were the kingpins. They were good, so I left them alone. We took the frame to a local firm that sandblasted it and powder coated it. The rest of the parts were media blasted by myself and a desktop blast cabinet that I got from Harbor Freight. Items that were not small enough went to a local company to be media blasted. The body got loaded on a trailer and hauled to Holdridge, Nebraska and media blasted. Then I took it to a local body shop, and it took them about 18 months to get the body work done. While there, it was determined the bed needed to be replaced, so I went to a salvage yard in Edgar, Nebraska, and got a good bed and tailgate. The small parts I painted in the garage, such as the transmission, rear end, and etc. Before sending the frame off for powder coating, I had to replace the rear cross member on the frame. I went down to the local metal supplier and had them bend a new C-channel for the member. Then I used grade 8 bolts to attach it. After getting the frame back from powder coating, we started to reassemble the rolling chassis. I replaced all the seals in the rear end and repainted it. The springs were re-arched and repainted. New U-joints were installed and the brakes were rebuilt using new wheel cylinders. I had the master cylinder re-sleeved with a brass sleeve by Apple Hydraulics. Then new brake lines and the fuel line was run. I purchased a new wiring harness so all of the electrics were gone through. I had to replace the third gear in the transmission. We sealed and finished the gas tank using products from Eastwood. I also had a local radiator shop build a new radiator and heater core. In these pics, you can see the engine detail we did. The intake manifold had to have some welding done on it. Then we used some manifold coating from Eastwood on it and the exhaust manifold. 16-inch rims were painted in magnolia ivory to match the body. We mounted wide white wall bias tires from Coker. A rebuilt carb was purchased in the back, and in the background you can see a 78 Ford Super Cab pickup I had restored. The next few pics I have here show the cab mounted back on the frame. I don't have any pics from the body shop, so all I can tell you about it is that it was completely media blasted before being sprayed. Came out perfect. Yes, the Cambrian coral looks pink. Doing research on the project, I found that back in the 50s, the executives put their wives on the color committee, and you got some pretty interesting colors. I did receive a Ladies' Choice Award at one of the shows I took it to, if that means anything. I will show you some completed engine compartment pics next. They turned out really well. Also, for the first time bending tubing, I think it turned out pretty good. I coated the tubing with a spray clear coat that has held up pretty well. Now on to the interior. I had a local upholsterer redo the seats, door panels, and sunshades. They turned out great. We did not reuse the bottom springs on the seat. She just had me cut a plywood form and she made it out of foam from there. The headliner on these are just a piece of upholsterer's cardboard painted gray. For the firewall, I used some heavier upholsterer's cardboard and bolted it together at the seams. Overall, it turned out great and has held up well. Finally, here are some pictures of the completed project. Can't believe it's been that long since we finished her. It was a great project, and it's been a great vehicle.